The pioneering spirit is nothing new to agriculture, as innovation has made farming in America the most productive and technologically advanced in the world. Yet, tomorrow will present a new set of challenges that'll require new ideas, inventions, and innovations. That is what Farm Next is all about, showing you the future of farming. From autonomous robots to cutting-edge digital tools to better ways to fertilize your crops and increase soil health, this program will give you a glimpse of the exciting future agriculture has in store. Stay tuned to see what's next on Farm Next. In last week's episode, we saw presentations from 3 companies vying to move on as a finalist for the grand prize of $50,000. Our first pitch came from Jackson Stansel of Sentinel Fertigation, a startup combining precise satellite imagery with fertigation control to maximize nitrogen use. Then we heard from Mark DeSantis of Bloomfield Robotics. They pair artificial intelligence with an innovative camera for management of specialty crops like grapes. Our final pitch was from ALA Engineering and Jacob Hansen. His company is focused on changing how cattle are fed using their autonomous feed trucks. It was a tough decision for our panel, and the audience votes were close. But the finalist is Sentinel Fertigation. Congratulations to Jackson and the entire Sentinel team. Now one step closer to the grand prize of $50,000. Coming up next is episode 2 of this season of Farm Next, featuring 3 new companies, so stay tuned.
This Pro Box has enough seed to plant 125 acres of corn. Now, if you wanted to put 40 pounds of nitrogen on those acres, you'd need 1,200 gallons of anhydrous, or 1,500 gallons of UAN, or 5 tons of urea. What if you had the nitrogen you need already on seed? Pivot Bio is the first company to apply nitrogen on seed. The nitrogen you need, now on seed, from Pivot Bio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Farm Next. I'm Max Armstrong, and I'm thrilled to be giving you a front row seat into what's next in the world of agriculture. But before we get started, let's talk about a transformational technology that's here right now. Microbes that can replace nitrogen fertilizer. Not that many years ago, the co-founders of Pivot Bio dreamed of creating a better way to provide nitrogen to crops. And like the inventors you'll hear from on Farm Next, they dedicated time, effort, and capital to turn their dream into a reality. And today, Pivot Bio's products deliver nitrogen to corn, wheat, and sorghum, and are being used by farmers across the country. Pivot Bio knows just how challenging it is to transform an idea into a product and to get it into the hands of farmers. So Pivot Bio, together with Farm Progress, scoured the country and found 9 new entrepreneurs. And their ideas might be just what transforms the future of agriculture. In this season of Farm Next, you'll see cutting-edge innovations. You'll meet the brilliant minds behind each idea, and you'll watch them compete for a $50,000 grand prize. Each episode will feature 3 companies that'll pitch their ideas directly to our in-studio panel. First on the panel is Karsten Temme, CEO and co-founder of Pivot Bio. Chris Abbott, an investor in the agriculture industry with the Conti Ag Ventures. And finally, Lisa Peterson, a grower from Osage, Iowa. After each pitch, our panel will pose questions to the innovators on the novelty of their ideas, the commercial viability of their company, and the positive impact they could make on the agriculture industry. Then the panelists will deliberate which one of the 3 companies will move on as a finalist and be one step closer to the grand prize of $50,000. And you, our audience, can vote live during the show whether you think each idea has what it takes to move on by going to farmnext.com/vote. 3 out of the 9 companies will be selected as finalists for our special grand prize winner episode, which airs August 21st at 7 p.m. Central on RFD TV and will also stream on farmnext.com. Each company will also be present at the Farm Progress Show in Decatur, Illinois, August 29th through the 31st. There you can meet the brilliant minds behind these innovative companies and get an in-person view of What's Next in Agriculture. This week's episode will feature Re-Envision Ag, which is developing a planter system that allows farmers to be more efficient during planting season. We'll also hear from Haber Technologies about their innovative grain bin drying system that allows farmers to harvest earlier and increase corn longevity. And then last up is Lepodext, a Kentucky-based company with a product that causes sterility in the ag industry's biggest insect pest. Stay tuned for all of the innovation coming your way after these brief messages.
So Pivot Bio asked us to build the ultimate ranch truck and make it John Wayne themed.
Ready to win some money for this whole crew? Yeah. All right, let's do it. Let's get in.
Ben Bailey here. I'm back with season 2 of Money Grab in the Cab.
Why did you get started in farming?
I'm crazy. This is gonna get me in trouble.
That's not a retirement, that's a responsibility.
I have nothing to hide. The good and the bad.
Unscripted, unfiltered, unapologetic.
All right, so when you think of Wisconsin, what do you think of? Aside for beer and cheese and people wearing cheese while drinking beer.
Imagine 20,000 Confederate troopers coming this way and you've got 2,700 at most. I mean, this is a huge, huge risk that he's taking.
The story of a farm is the story of a family. From generations past to generations to come, families have raised their children and the crops that sustain our country on the same fields. Today, with a better nitrogen, farmers can continue to take care of what matters most, the land they work and the people they do it with.
What does it take to deliver nitrogen to your crop? Fossil fuels, lots of them, from places near and far. Then you need ships, trains, trucks. Each step someone gets. Once it's on your farm, you have to store, manage, and drag it across the field. Each step you spend. With Pivot Bio, the nitrogen you need is already on seed. Our microbes deliver nitrogen no matter the weather, right from the kernel. The nitrogen you need, now on seed, from Pivot Bio.
Welcome back to Farm Next, the show that gives you a glimpse into the exciting future of agriculture. Our first pitch comes from Jason Reiner, founder and CEO of Re-Envision Ag. Let's hear what Re-Envision Ag is all about.
Hi, I'm Jason Reiner, an Iowa farmer and founder of Re-Envision Ag. Farmers make the most money when we plant as early as possible into an ideal planting window. The problem is that Iowa State has quantified that we're losing that time. We've lost 27% of the days suitable for spring field work. For those of us who want to plant into green cover crops or no-till, finding that planting window is getting even harder. We've got a planting problem and it's costing farmers money. At Re-Envision Ag, we've patented the first ever ultra-low soil disturbance planter, designed to make farmers money by widening that planting window, reducing compaction, and bringing full yield potential. You see, all of the major manufacturers, all of our competitors, use the same double disc opener design that causes disc opener compaction when it's used in wet soils. There are no other options. Our seed spike is the first planter designed for the soil health era. The simplest way to plant a seed with the most precision and the least amount of soil contact is to press a seed into the soil and then fill the remaining hole. And that's what we do, allowing farmers to plant into wet conditions, cover crops, and no-till without the fear of that double disc opener compaction. Now, our product attaches to the planter that the farmer already owns by just changing 4 bolts and brings to them all of these benefits. We've demonstrated the ability to plant 5 to 7 days ahead of a double disc opener. Now, this isn't all that we have for our seed spike. it opens the door to a whole bunch more things. Because we don't drag a disc opener through the soil, we use less than half of the energy that a double disc opener would use. That opens the door and allows swarm robot technology, lightweight robots, to go out and plant with the least amount of compaction possible. Because we individually place each seed, we will be able to geolocate where each seed of the cash crop and each plant of the cash crop is growing. That way we can come back and use the exact same spike to put fertilizer or other inputs into the root zone exactly when the plant needs it. Now that's the ultimate in precision farming, and it means profit for farmers. We've been working on this for 3 years. This spring we have planted cotton and corn in Tennessee and Iowa. And we would be asking to go into the finals, where we'll use the $50,000 award to build our Farm Next prototype number 4, where we'll be able to go in and custom plant for farmers in the spring of 2024. So thank you so much.
As a farmer who has just upgraded a planter in the last 2-3 years with lots of different things on it to help seed to soil contact, downforce, closing on the furrow, why is this such a better benefit, and what is the cost?
First off, we use way less power. So a 12-row planter or a 24-row planter can be pulled by a much smaller implement. We don't have to have tillage in front. So the $45 an acre that someone is paying to have a ripper and a field cultivator, we just take that off the top, plus the tractor, the huge tractor to pull that with, take it off the top. Now you're adding cover crops and no-till, so you're gaining all of that soil health benefit so that we're absorbing the water more quickly. And all of the soil health era changes that are coming to agriculture. Now, from a price standpoint, we hook our row unit on and use whatever seed meter the farmer's already using. So for a farmer that's retrofitting or ready to, say, every 5 to 8 years we repair the components on a row unit. So instead of doing that, if you're upgrading to a seed spike, we're looking at a cost around $10,000 to $12,000 per row. But the amount of power that we need, because we don't have to have hydraulic down pressure, and we don't have to have closing pressure, and so it's a much simpler system as well.
Can you talk a bit about some of the challenges you'll face with the spike, the mud, just how to get around those, or how you could have some continual improvement across time?
This picture was taken, we had 0.4 of an inch of rain at 5 a.m., and by 10 a.m. we were planting. We've got a proprietary skid plate that we use to clean off the mud off of the spike and then hold that soil in place. The spike itself presses the seed into the front of the hole, and so we achieve seed to soil contact in a different way than any other planter. All the other planters smush soil, drop a seed, and then smush the soil again. We actually place the seed into the soil, getting that seed to soil contact.
So if I understand it right, the seed tube's coming into the center of the unit, and as it spins, that seed is going out through each one of those tines that you see there.
Yes, so each spike, there are 12 spikes on the reel. It's just like a Ferris wheel. The seed gets on the top of the Ferris wheel and then is ejected into the soil at the bottom of the Ferris wheel.
But talk to me a little bit more about that technology. How are you delivering the seed? How is it coming through the planter and making sure that you're not skipping something going through that hole as well?
So we currently have an open funnel system, but we're looking at a blowing system where instead of using the farmer's seed meter and then having to transfer the seed into our funnels, where we would just take the center fill tube and place it into our own seed meter and then use that pressurized system to blow the seeds through the inside of the reel into the spike. One of the patents is on a twin row unit, and we do place those twin row corn kernels exactly perfectly. And the real trick, though, is probably looking into the future and how do we receive that seed oriented properly so that once it's oriented properly and goes in our spike, we'll be able to put it in the soil in whichever orientation we want. And there's great evidence that that's the next big boom for yield.
And so what's then the total ROI using that math to the grower in the payback period?
If you try to figure out the ROI on a new 36-row green painted planter, they're really, I mean, the ROI on a brand new planter is 25 years. And we can take a cycloplanter from the 1970s and bring it into the modern era of soil health with exact precision. So a farmer that doesn't want to buy the brand new 36-row green painted planter then can upgrade their planter.
So Jason, talk to me a little bit about how you got to this point and where you are in the evolution from R&D all the way through to commercial.
Spring of 2018 was the wettest spring on record. And as a no-till and strip-till farmer, I really recognized the pain of not being able to get in the field. Then in the spring of 2019, we had the wettest year on record for the second year in a row. And then in the spring of 2020, we had COVID. That summer, we pushed with a snowblower. We took the front end off a snowblower and made a chain link drive for our first proof of concept model. Then we went to the twin row that I mentioned earlier. And then finally, we've arrived at prototype number 3.
And when will we get the first field fully planted with that planter?
We're looking at our prototype 4 as being able to plant the first field with a fixed population of 34,500. We can plant either corn or cotton, and we're looking at spring of 2024.
So being able to plant earlier, some advantages on how you might be able to maximize the overall stewardship of that acre. Can you expand on some of the other benefits that might tie into stewardship or sustainability?
No-till ground absorbs water faster. And part of the problem is that we've lost part of our planting window due to huge weather events. So farmers will gain by converting to no-till, and it allows them to absorb more water. And that no-till ground also holds more water. So when we have extreme dry events or extreme heat events, then that ground is more resilient and can provide more of what the crop needs. As we want to reduce the amount of nitrogen that we use, when we apply that nitrogen, if we can go and poke the nitrogen into the root zone of the individual plant at the exact right time, then we can further maximize the use of our inputs, and that saves the farmers money, but it also means less inputs developed, produced, and then released into the environment.
So talk to us about what the next 3 to 5 years look like.
Well, we're really interested in perfecting this design, minimizing the moving parts and making it work and be much more durable, and looking forward to getting out in farmers' fields and showing them this great new innovation and all of the benefits that it can bring.
You just heard from Re-Envision Ag and how they can help farmers reduce tillage and give growers more options at planting. Let's check in with the panelists and see if Re-Envision Ag has what it takes to move on as a finalist. But first, let's get an initial reaction from Jason on how he thought his pitch went.
I think that performance in front of the judges went really pretty well. I got to put most of the things that I wanted to about the row unit into my original pitch, and then their questions were very, very interesting and really insightful questions. So that, I think, will help the viewers understand what we're doing at Re-Envision Ag.
I love the idea of not opening up the soil, though.
Yeah.
From a compaction standpoint, from just wetness, just being able to poke that seed in, I love that idea. It's just how can we implement it? Yeah, I think he's still in that, trying to figure out how to implement it and make it work.
The destination can everybody can agree and get behind it.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like to get the business to really sing, you have to marry it with some of the technical trade-offs. And that's the part of the phase he's in right now, is figuring out what can you actually build and protect that also makes sense from a business perspective.
There's lots of potential for Jason and his company. If you want to learn more about Re-Envision Ag, go to reenvisionag.com. Stay tuned to learn about our next company, Haber Technologies, and how they are working to eliminate post-harvest loss. After these brief messages.
Farmers have always taken care of what they value. They cultivated bountiful land and fed a nation hungry for progress. As Americans dialed up, precision on the farm led to yields once thought impossible. But when it came to nitrogen, it wasn't precise or predictable enough. Farmers deserve a nitrogen worthy of who they are, and what their land can provide. And now there is one.
This Pro Box has enough seed to plant 125 acres of corn. Now, if you wanted to put 40 pounds of nitrogen on those acres, you'd need 1,200 gallons of anhydrous, or 1,500 gallons of UAN, or 5 tons of urea. What if you had the nitrogen you need already on seed? Pivot Bio is the first company to apply nitrogen on seed. The nitrogen you need, now on seed, from Pivot Bio.
So Pivot Bio asked us to build the ultimate ranch truck and make it John Wayne themed.
Ready to win some money for this whole crew? Yeah. All right, let's do it. Let's get in.
Ben Bailey here. I'm back with season 2 of Money Grab in the Cab.
Why did you get started in farming? I'm crazy.
This is going to get me in trouble. That's not a retirement, that's a responsibility.
I have nothing to hide. The good and the bad.
Unscripted, unfiltered, unapologetic.
All right, so when you think of Wisconsin, what do you think of? Aside for beer and cheese and people wearing cheese while drinking beer.
Imagine 20,000 Confederate troopers coming this way, and you've got 2,700 at most. I mean, this is a huge, huge risk that he's taking.
Welcome back to Farm Next, the show that gives you a front row seat into what's next in the world of agriculture. Our next pitch comes from Dylan Hurd and Eric Harwager, co-founders of Haber Technologies. Let's listen in.
Hello, my name is Dylan Hurd, president and co-founder of Haber Technologies. I grew up in a small town, Story City, Iowa.
And I'm Eric Harwager, CTO and co-founder. I graduated from Iowa State University in ag and bioengineering with a focus on grain science.
I also went to Iowa State, did undergrad in ag and bioengineering, followed that with my master's in chemical. I'll be finishing my PhD in chemical engineering here soon.
Let's talk about how Haber is the future of grain drying and automation.
Now, each year, farmers spend approximately $6.6 billion on energy drying their crop. And in the process, they additionally emit about 20 million tons of CO2. Now, on top of that, when the grain leaves the field, if it doesn't go directly to the co-op or to market, it disappears into a network of grain bins across the countryside. And there's where it sits for 2 to 9 months, and then it magically shows back up at market, right? Now, in the future, where traceability, energy tracking are important to the end buyer, farmers who have unmonitored bins not only risk hotspots and spoilage, but also risk losing access to this market. Now, this is part of the bigger problem that Haber is working to solve. Now, our first product was a patented dry stack system. So it dries grain layer by layer in the bin, and it uses less energy than a conventional dryer. It enables farmers to harvest 2 to 3 weeks ahead of the USDA average. It also allows them to peak their bins, and they can put in up to 23% moisture corn. These are all big deals. In 2021, the dry stack was awarded the Davidson Prize from ASABE, making it the #1 agricultural engineering innovation in the world that year.
This year, we launched the Auto Bin, which is a grain bin monitoring system that allows farmers to run their fans according to the weather, allows them to track their temperature, and it also allows them to track their energy usage. On top of that, there's a grain bin camera on top that allows them to view their corn without climbing their bin. In addition, every single product that we have gives access to a grain expert to the farmers 24/7. And it sets farmers up for a future where grain traceability and energy tracking is the norm. So our farmers like the dry stack system because it allows them to fill directly into the grain bins. Other farmers like Joel, who plants cover crops, he takes advantage of the expanded harvest window. This allows Joel to get into the field and pick 13 days earlier, which allows him to get back into the field 13 days earlier, and ultimately allows his crop to have 13 more days of growing season. This lets Joel get 3 crops in 2 years. There are 13 billion bushels of grain across the US in unprotected grain bins. That's $78 billion worth of grain in on-farm bank accounts sitting unprotected and unmonitored across 900,000 bins across the US. Our mission is to connect every single grain bin onto the internet in order to protect the farmer's money-making asset, their grain.
Now in the future, where automation, energy tracking, food traceability play a bigger role in the market, our vision is to create a connected grain supply chain. This starts by connecting the grain bins and then fully monitoring and automating the grain sites, ultimately protecting the farmer's assets, improving their operation and their profitability. If awarded this prize, we're looking to take the winnings to bring more automations to the grain site. For starters, we've heard from farmers, many of them, that stirrators are a pain. And so one of our next automations is we're bringing our cameras and our automation to actually fully automate the stirrators in the bins. Second, we're looking to connect conventional dryers to the internet, allowing farmers to remotely control and monitor their existing continuous flow dryers. Now the big picture for us is we're looking to allow farmers to use the data coming from their connected bins to get premiums for their crops via smart contracts and using the traceability and carbon intensity tracking that's being done on those bins for a premium.
We just want to help farmers, period. If you take a look at a map of our history, you'd see that we started in 3 farms in Iowa 5 years ago. Today, we're helping farmers across this country, from Pennsylvania to California, and we're just getting started.
Thank you so much.
So talk a little bit more about the business model there, as you were touching on the value prop, and then how you take that to market. Do you partner with the soukups and the bin manufacturers?
So we've been doing direct to farmer historically, and this year we are expanding to an independent dealer network. And when we go to market, obviously, there's initial capital cost of those units, but then there's also recurring revenue.
What's the demographics of who you're targeting?
Yeah.
Every farmer in the U.S.
So for the dry stack, it's really those mid-sized farmers who are looking to grow. The CapEx expenditure to put in a large grain facility, right, a tower, a leg, all of that for continuous flow becomes very capital intensive. So the dry stack actually is a really great option for them because it's a less CapEx, but also you can add it to more and more bins over the year and expand your capacity, and you don't have to plan 15 years ahead, right?
Another farmer is going to be your farmer that has a remote site. So let's say he just got a piece of land over 8 miles away. You don't want to truck that 8 miles here, 8 miles back, to just dry it.
Even farmers who have more mature grain sites, right? Having the ability to monitor and get the data off of those bins for whichever thing they want, whether it's CO2, temperature, moisture, we are able to serve that customer now as well.
So as a farmer myself and thinking about our operation, it seems like you're moving away from some of the dry stack technology originally and branching into some more spaces. Did I understand that correct? Or
yeah, so it's been an interesting growth for the company. So we started with the dry stack. The air delivery system that makes a dry stack work is composed of stacks with valves, and it requires a very sophisticated IoT architecture to run it. Now, that system is not practical, or farmers don't need them in every single one of their bins. So the auto bin is really the dry stack minus the stacks. So it's a reusing of the existing technology and development to allow us to connect the rest of the farmer's site, right, to the internet at a lower capital cost, so they don't need dry stack in every bin. So the dry stack is really for their drying bins.
help me understand then how that fits into the marketplace where, like, currently, grain sensors hanging down. I have a continuous flow, mixed flow dryer. I'm pushing that grain into storage bins, and I've got monitors currently. What's different about your play?
Yeah, so you already have your monitoring system in your bin, right? We can connect to that monitoring system. Generally, we can connect to any temperature cable. We can connect to most moisture cables, and we can connect to any fan.
So it allows you to get all of your sensors on one platform where you're gathering and automating your entire grain system using a single platform. And that gives you then, at the end result in the future, you have a unified metric for your energy usage and your traceability for your operation.
You've touched on a bit about sustainability. Can you just expand on that, talk a little bit about the potential and where you see some of the economics playing out over time?
Yeah, so sustainability to us means not only sustainability for the environment, but also sustainability for labor practices. So as you guys all know, it's super hard to get labor anywhere now, especially on the farm. And we've been able to help automate parts of the farm to save in that labor.
You know, farmers, they think in terms of kilowatt hours and gallons of LP, right? Well, tons of CO2 is the same thing. It's just a different metric, different unit, if you will. And so anytime you're able to reduce energy consumption during what is a very intense energy usage piece of corn production, which is drying, you're benefiting. The reduction in the emissions is important because that means that the data, if you're able to measure and verify that less energy was used, now that data just became worth something as well.
Put some numbers on that. Give us a sense of how big, what kind of savings, what are we talking about?
So for the dry stack system, it runs about 40% less energy than a conventional dryer. And so rough math, you got a 40,000 bushel bin, you dry down a load of corn from 25%, you're potentially reducing your CO2 emissions by almost 40 tons.
Talk a little bit about how change management or resistance to change can play into your sales cycle.
A lot of these farmers, the younger generation, they see the need for automation on the farm, but it's hard to convince dad to really let you spend some good money on something, right? And so that's really where we found a lot of success in being able to kind of provide this incremental deployment of automation. Start with the fan control, then add your temp cables, and then add your CO2 monitor, right? So we've been able to manage that resistance to change kind of by giving them something that they can understand right off the bat, and as they become more comfortable, then we're able to continue to serve them and improve their automations.
Yeah, so I mean, farmers aren't a monolith. You have older farmers that have flip phones and that needed us to build them interfaces on their bins for them to use our product. You also have older farmers that are very acceptable of new technology, and that they're passing on the torch to the next generation, and they just want to make it easier for those guys.
It'll be interesting to see how this technology could help farmers harvest earlier and reduce energy costs. We'll see if Haber Technologies has what it takes to move on as a finalist. But first, let's get initial reactions from Dylan and Eric on how they thought it went.
I think it was really exciting. Definitely a little nerve-wracking. It was exciting to be able to present in that context, and I think we did pretty good. But yeah, it was exciting.
I think they didn't go too hard on us, so really appreciate that.
I mean, it's interesting. There's a few folks trying to really optimize drying. I like this approach. The thing I like most is they've been scrappy to get product proof point, get product market fit.
And they're a lot more advanced than some of the other startups that we've talked to. They've found some product of market fit, but they don't yet have the business model that's going to mean they can generate cash.
Right.
It's a limited marketplace that's going to fit into, right? Your really large operations aren't going to be able to do that unless it's a remote.
It'll be an interesting road ahead because it's that new point. How do we expand into something else that's going to make or break them for the long term?
Well, it sounds like Haber Technologies has real potential to move on as a finalist. If you want to learn more about Haber Technologies, go to haber-tech.com. That's haber-tech.com. Stay tuned to learn about our next company, Lepidex, and their revolutionary insect pest control method after these brief messages.
On the farm, there's no such thing as a day without work. For some jobs, there's only the hard way, the way it's always been done. But when it comes to nitrogen, now there's a better way with Pivot Bio. Farmers deserve a nitrogen that works as hard as they do, one that stays with the crop until the job is done. It's time to turn to a better nitrogen.
What does it take to deliver nitrogen to your crop? Fossil fuels, lots of them, from places near and far. Then you need ships, trains, trucks. Each step someone gets. Once it's on your farm, you have to store, manage, and drag it across the field. Each step you spend. With Pivot Bio, the nitrogen you need is already on seed. Our microbes deliver nitrogen no matter the weather, right from the kernel. The nitrogen you need, now on seed, from Pivot Bio.
So Pivot Bio asked us to build the ultimate ranch truck and make it John Wayne themed.
Ready to win win some money for this whole crew? Yeah. All right, let's do it. Let's get in.
Ben Bailey here. I'm back with season 2 of Money Grab in the Cab.
Why did you get started in farming?
I'm crazy.
This is going to get me in trouble. That's not a retirement, that's a responsibility.
I have nothing to hide. The good and the bad.
Unscripted, unfiltered, unapologetic.
All right, so when you think of Wisconsin, what do you think of? Aside for beer and cheese and people wearing cheese while drinking beer.
Imagine 20,000 Confederate troopers coming this way, and you've got 2,700 at most. I mean, this is a huge, huge risk that he's taking.
Welcome back here to Farm Next, the show that gives you a glimpse into the exciting future of agriculture. Our final pitch comes from Bruce and Maria of Lepodext. Let's listen in.
Hi, I'm Maria.
And I'm Bruce.
And we are Lepodext. To impart big changes, you need to believe that you can. And you also need a strong technology, an opportunity, and the team. Big changes are usually driven by small teams like ours. At Lepodext, we are convinced that we can change the way that we control pests in your crops. We start by controlling a very well-known pest for farmers.
Corn earworm, the cotton bollworm, and the tomato fruit worm are all the same pest. Every year, farmers make plans to control that pest using Bt plants, chemical insecticides, and biological control. But pests have great defenses, and when you have pest control failure, you have an outbreak of the population that can destroy crops. One farmer described to me standing in his field and literally hearing corn earworm eat his crops. Over 100 million acres of Bt plants are planted every year, and the graph on the right shows resistance developing to that. We're now seeing resistance in corn earworm to the third generation of Bt plants. At Lepodext, we're working on a new technology that can sterilize the moth to prevent the pest. To optimize yield, farmers control planting, they control plant genetics, they control cultivation and harvest. It's hard to control the pest pressure. And so you're responding to the pest after the fact. They need new tools. The old tools may be less effective. Maybe we need not just new tools. Maybe we need a new approach. Maybe we need to sterilize the moths to prevent the caterpillar pest. In Steris, our new technology is effective, it's field tested, it's a biopesticide, and it's easy to apply. A virus that sterilizes corn earworm moths is already in your field. It sterilizes 1 out of 5 corn earworm moths that become infected. The technology we have developed controls 100% of the insects, sterilizes 100% of the insects that acquire the infection. With this new technology, we can develop a new approach that will allow us to control the caterpillar pest by controlling the moth.
Our focus is on the farmer. We want to develop a product that is not only effective, but also easy to apply. Steris can be easier to apply. Steris is delivered in a box, and you open the box. We deliver the box to your field. Steris seeks, delivers, and sterilizes the pest in your crop, controlling the caterpillar that is the cause of the damage. Where are we now? We are in the process of regulatory review and approval, and we're developing field demonstrations and first sales for the crop season of 2025. On behalf of the Lepodext team, I want to thank you. We have the team, we have a strong technology, we have the vision. Farm Next provides the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to really dig in with you. Can you maybe teach me a bit about the life cycle of the pest, and then kind of overlay how your approach is going to fit into the growing season and what that means for a farmer and being able to control that life cycle?
This is a virus that makes a choice. It only grows, it only replicates in the reproductive tissues, both males and females. And when it infects a moth, it chooses to either be asymptomatic and cause no effects, or it chooses to sterilize the moth. You think of that as a switch. What we have done is control that switch. We've taken away the option for asymptomatic infection, and it drives the infection down the replicative sterilizing infection. So we literally destroy the reproductive tissues of both males and females.
So then the moth cannot lay eggs, which then produce the caterpillar or the
precisely
that chews on the on the cotton.
So you're treating to control the next generation. That's why it's a preventative rather than a treatment.
And so, but how many moths do you have to release must differ based on pest pressure?
So 10%. So if you have 1,000 moths per acre in your crop, which is a very high infestation level, we would release 100 moths. In our experimental trial plots, we're releasing on the order of 10 moths per acre, and we're seeing 80% infection of the wild type moths.
For every Ensteris moth, it can sterilize 10 to 15 moths in your field. We would target to apply it as generations that are in the field, and depends on the region and the field that we're controlling or preventing the damage. How many applications? We expect that it's going to be about 2.
And are growers apprehensive to adopt this because you can't actually see it work until time elapses rather than a kill agent that might have a more immediate response?
Farmers have said no, they don't have a problem releasing moths because they don't have many opportunities to treat with chemicals. They are looking for other solutions. They need other solutions, especially in cotton.
One moth can lay 1,500 eggs. So when we sterilize that moth or we reduce her egg production by 50%, that has a tremendous impact. And so it takes the population levels down to where they go below economic thresholds.
So this is going to sound really crazy, but you know, I might not get along with my next door neighbor, and I'm the one that's going to be releasing these moths, but my neighbor isn't. There's no way to keep, how are you dealing with that, where I want the moths to go onto my land, not my next door neighbors? Or is it that at some point you have to get to the point where you're collaborating with all the neighbors around you to make sure that you're getting the efficacy and the control that you need?
The moths will go where the food source is. So if your field is in bloom, the moth will stay around your field. It may go to your neighbors. Ensteris may go to your neighbor's field, but it's just an added bonus.
In the fields that we tested, we saw the moths stay within the confines of a 150-acre field. Yeah.
Why did you choose the virus route that doesn't persist generation to generation?
So viruses already know how to get around in their host. And what we're doing is it's a mutation. So it is a genetic route, but we're not putting anything into it. We're not putting any new DNA into the virus or into the moth. What we've done is taken the gene away. And that technology allows our product to be an organic product. We think it'll be much more accepting. And frankly, it works great.
What regulatory hurdles are you facing as a company?
So we have done non-target testing on honeybees, wasps, parasitic wasps, 4 species, and we've seen no effects. This virus doesn't replicate in mammalian cells. The EPA is having us do sets of experiments because this is, frankly, just a new technology. And they want to be sure that it behaves as we say that it's going to behave as we deliver it to the field.
It sounds like there are a number of benefits to the grower, but there could also be some sustainability benefits.
You're not shipping megatons of product across oceans. You're shipping milligrams of insect in a box that is probably recyclable.
We can reduce pest populations. That extends the viability of those BT plants. So rather than need to replace that technology every 5 to 7 years, maybe it lasts 10 to 15 years. The corn earworm targets about 34 cultivated crops. 2 or 3 of those have transgenics. So the opportunity to apply this technology to other crops already exists with what we already have. We know that there are similar viruses in other moth pests. So we have started looking at those. You know, it's an unproven technology, so we have to keep our blinders on and focus on showing that it works on the corn earworm pest. And if we can do that, that will get people's attention. And can we expand into other areas? The short answer is yes.
Controlling earworms and cotton bollworms by sterilizing the moths. Now, that's innovative. Let's see what Bruce and Maria thought about their pitch, and then we'll check in with our panelists.
I thought it went well. I was surprised at how much they wanted to know about the technical aspects of the product. Yeah, I think we had a good time.
It was really gratifying to see how quickly they grasped the technology, and more importantly than that, they understood its potential for farmers and for society.
I think it's an interesting technology, and it sounds like, I think some of the biggest concerns always with the biopesticides and doing something with a living being is what other effects of the ecosystem does it impact, and it sounds like they found something that's a very limiting factor where it doesn't seem to affect the rest around, and I think that's fascinating.
I just get fascinated by the whole space because, I mean, we've seen how long it takes to get a trait through the science, let alone the regulatory and scaling that up so it's available commercially. And out there in nature, there are hundreds and hundreds of potential answers. So being able to take biology, new insects or viruses that can combat any pests, it's going to be, I think, what really drives our ability to have crop pest control over the next 2-3 decades.
Yes, it looks like Lepodext has a bright future ahead. To learn more about Lepodext, go online and visit lepodext.com. Again, that's lepodext.com. Now that we've heard from all 3 companies, let's see what our panelists think as they deliberate who'll be one step closer to $50,000. You won't want to miss it after these brief messages.
The story of a farm is the story of a family. From generations past to generations to come, families have raised their children and the crops that sustain our country on the same fields. Today, with a better nitrogen, farmers can continue to take care of what matters most, the land they work and the people they do it with.
So Pivot Bio asked us to build the ultimate ranch truck and make it John Wayne themed.
Ready to win some money for this whole crew? Yeah. All right, let's do it. Let's get in.
Ben Bailey here. I'm back with season 2 of Money Grab in the Cab.
Why did you get started in farming?
I'm crazy.
This is going to get me in trouble. That's not a retirement, that's a responsibility.
I have nothing to hide. The good and the bad.
Unscripted, unfiltered, unapologetic.
All right, so when you think of Wisconsin, what do you think of? Aside for beer and cheese and people wearing cheese while drinking beer.
Imagine 20,000 Confederate troopers coming this way, and you've got 2,700 at most. I mean, this is a huge, huge risk that he's taking.
What does it take to deliver nitrogen to your crop? Fossil fuels, lots of them, from places near and far. Then you need ships, trains, trucks. Each step someone gets. Once it's on your farm, you have to store, manage, and drag it across the field. Each step you spend. With Pivot Bio, the nitrogen you need is already on seed. Our microbes deliver nitrogen no matter the weather, right from the kernel. The nitrogen you need, now on seed. From Pivot Bio.
Welcome back to Farm Next, the show that gives you the front row seat to what's next in the world of agriculture. Now that we've seen presentations from all three companies, our panel will discuss which company has what it takes to represent the group as a semifinalist. Let's review these three that we've heard from here and how disparate they are. I mean, you've got some very interesting prospects to look at here, but they have some very unique challenges. What strikes you about that, Chris?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, these three are a wide array of technologies, from implementation technology on seed to sterilizing moths with viruses. I mean, these are two very unrelated things, but I think what's important here is all three businesses are utilizing technology that can come from both within ag and outside of ag. And so as we think about pressures around farmer profitability and sustainability, all three of these plays directly into that.
I think what excites me about it is that they're also disruptors in their market, right? They're doing something very different in markets that have traditionally been served in a different way. So Lepidex is introducing a moth to take care of a pest where a lot of times we're spraying. With Re-envision Ag, we haven't changed how we've planted in a very long time with the double disc opener. Now we're changing that. That disrupts how the market is going, how the market is. And then our final one with Haber, we haven't, that type of in-drying technology is brand new. You know, we've been able to dry as a whole bench, but as a whole, like a bin, as a batch, but not in the way that they've done it. So I think that's what excited me about these three companies, was how they're disrupting their part of the industry.
The commercial strategies of these, let's talk a little bit about that, to getting that carried fully through. What did you think of that?
All three of these companies have an opportunity to be a little more creative with their business model and maybe unlock some ROI that the incumbent way of doing things doesn't have access to. So take Re-envision Ag. I think we heard a little bit about the potential of all the aspects of stewardship and sustainability that can get tied to a new approach on planting. And there might be some ways that there's new economics for a grower if you get creative about the way that business model plays out.
And one thing, Max, too, that I like, to Carson's point there, is when you re-envision distribution at Lepidex, so they're shipping moths, right, which is totally different than sacks and totes and jugs of what we would traditionally use for various methods of crop protection. My concern there was the scalability. If you can figure that out and that insect can be produced at scale at very low cost, it is a product that inherently is easy to ship and distribute. And so there's a different model that they can unlock in shipping direct to grower. Many of the things that Pivot has done very well in its business and leveraging the rep network where it can increase its speed to adoption rather than going through traditional retail or co-op. And so assuming you can figure out that scalability, which for me is the biggest unknown of that business that they can control outside regulatory, it certainly unlocks a number of new business models.
Well, we need to know which one of these has the best opportunity, the best potential going forward to really make their idea, their product, a success. Lisa?
Well, I'm torn between my Midwestern roots and Lepidex. So I'm torn between Re-envision Ag and Lepidex would be my two at the moment. And maybe one of these two guys can convince me which way I need to go. But I enjoy the Lepidex because understanding corn, I've done some projects in the cotton market and I understand how big that pest is in the cotton market and the opportunity that Lepidex has in front of them. And then I'm torn with my Midwestern roots because Re-envision Ag is something that actually could change the operation on our farm, and I see the potential that they have there. So that's where I'm struggling between the two. So I'll let these guys see if they can convince me one way or the other.
Carson?
I think that both of those points are great, and the potential for impact. It couldn't be bigger for those two companies. So the challenge is always that journey, how to get from here to there. I do think that I'm really excited to see what Re-envision Ag can do.
Max, for me, I'm sort of torn between Lepidex and Haber. So Haber I really like because, as we talked about with the team, having the ability to change practice and change harvest window and be able to have much more fine-tuned moisture does allow a grower to do things differently and improve their risk profile of their operation. Lepidex I really like. They also will have some scalability challenges, but playing into an unmet need where we know that there's both farmer pressure as it relates to resistance, but also consumer and regulatory pressure to change how we use synthetic chemistry, there's a lot of natural tailwinds. So I would err on the side of Lepidex, but we've got 3 great contestants.
What great analysis. We sure appreciate it. And our panelists have spoken indeed. Now it's your turn, you folks in the audience, to vote. You can go to farmnext.com/vote to cast your vote for which company you think should be the semifinalist representing the group. There you can also see profiles of other companies featured on this season of Farm Next. We'll reveal the semifinalist from this episode at the beginning of the Farm Next episode that will air on August 7th. So be sure to tune in 7 p.m. Central, the 7th of August. That's a Monday evening. Write it down. You'll be able to see who will be one step closer to the grand prize of $50,000. Oh, and finally, come visit us at the Farm Next Innovation Tent of the Farm Progress Show in Decatur, Illinois, August 29th through the 31st. Write down those dates. There you can meet the brilliant minds behind these innovative companies, and you can get an in-person view of what's next in agriculture. That's all the time we have today. Join us next time on Farm Next, the show that gives you the front row seat into what's next in the world of agriculture. Farm Next has been brought to you by Pivot Bio. Pivot Bio, the nitrogen that stays put, whether or not. Farm Next is produced by 22 Creative Group in association with REL Productions and has been a presentation of Farm Progress Broadcast.